Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Hi, welcome to the Marketing MASH. I'm Crystal Colson. I'm here with Eric Vidal, and today we're going to talk to you about brands that stood the test of time. But first, to get us in the mood, I've read a few facts about brands that have stood the test of time that I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. So first of all, I read on the Tiffany's website that the fine jewelry store actually used to, during the Civil War, create and sell flags and surgical equipment. Which is really interesting to me.
It's a little different than what they sell today, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And they actually sold swords, too, to the Union and people from the North. So
hold on, I know that just because a few weeks ago I was watching Pawn Stars, and someone came into what was it, the one where they come into the pawn store in Vegas? Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
Yep, Pawn Stars.
Anyway, he came in with a sword from the Civil War that had the little Tiffany logo on it. So that's why I know that.
That's so crazy. I can't believe that. So yeah, when I read that, I was like, I don't see how the two correlate. But I guess when the supply in fine jewelry during the Civil War dropped, the demand dropped, the founder, Charles Louis Tiffany, saw opportunity in selling swords and equipment that people needed at the time, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I think the lesson there is for these successful brands that have stood the test of time, it's being flexible, especially during dramatic...
Adaptable and flexible.
Yeah, especially during dramatic times, time changes, especially war, right?
Right. And actually, another one that I read was, Lloyd's of London, the insurance company. Well, it was founded by Edward Lloyd in 1688, and apparently it started out as a coffee house, which is interesting because now, they have the crazy, unique coverages that they have from, I think in the 80s, Bruce Springsteen got a $6 million policy on his voice, which was interesting.
Yeah, I know a lot of celebrities do stuff like that. But hold on, I'm going back to talk about changing or being adaptable. Coffee to insurance. So can you imagine someday in 50 years we'll go to Pete's of Seattle? Like Pete's Coffee, it's going to transition to...
God.
All right. Anyway, I'll let you go. Excuse me.
So anyways, I read these really interesting facts, and I thought that they could really kind of help us understand how brands can stand the test of time and actually see a great example. I know, Eric, you recently wrote a paper on the brands that have stood the test of time, and it's on our website. Actually, should.
Yeah. So I read an article just a little bit ago, and there's a link here on the blog everyone can take a look at. But one of the things that stood out for me was interesting was, you thought Guinness was old. Stella Artois, the lovely fine beer, can trace its roots all the way back to 1366. That's a long time.
I actually did hear that. That's crazy.
And the other one that I've known since back in the college days was always interesting to me is Bass Ale. So they're over 200 years old, and they have one of the oldest registered trademarks that's still, alive today in the world. And so that one just, that little red triangle, it's always stood out, and that one's interesting.
Eric, it's really interesting to me that all of your choices, I'm seeing a pattern here. Are you a beer guy?
A little bit.
A little bit of a beer snob. All
right.
Well, at least you know your history to back it up. So.
I guess I'll take the other one away because I'm not going to talk about the other story I had about a beer. But go to the article, take a look at it. There's also some interesting things about some other brands, newer ones and old ones. But let us know what brands that have stood the test of time that you're interested in, and definitely post them on the blog. We want to get some interesting input, and we'll go ahead and keep that going and add to it, okay? Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Marketing MASH. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.